Hello everyone, I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One-on-One. Actress Yaya DaCosta plays the lead role of Angela Vaughn in the new Fox network show called Our Kind of People. She left the NBC series Chicago Med after 6 seasons to join this show, which now shoots in Wilmington. Fox describes it as an exploration of race and class in America, set in the community of Oak Bluff on Martha's Vineyard, where the rich and powerful black elite have come to play for more than 50 years. I talked to Yaya about her lead role, about the importance of this series right now in today's society, and what viewers can expect in future episodes. Our Kind of People made its debut on Fox Wilmington September 21st. The series that shoots here in Wilmington has gotten positive reviews so far. And Yaya DaCosta, who plays the lead character of Angela Vaughn, is with us. Yaya, thank you for sparing some time to join us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
How familiar were you with Lawrence Otis Graham's best-selling book prior to working on this series?
Prior to working on the series, I had only heard the title and his name. I had never read it, but as soon as I got the job, I, of course, ordered it immediately online and got right into it. But, you know, that's the thing about art and creative license. The book is one thing, and our show is inspired by it, but our characters, our storylines are actually just unique to our world, and so hopefully people understand that and enjoy all of it.
What drew you to this project? Leaving the cold of Chicago for the heat of North Carolina, or what?
That was it right there. I'm done with Chicago winters and ready for some Wilmington humidity. My goodness, this heat, it's not just the heat, it's the humidity. And then the rain, and then, you know, the humidity again. One thing I had never seen before that I saw here after a shower was one of those like rainbow clouds.
Yeah.
Do you see those? Beautiful. Anyway, yeah. Wilmington has been good to us for sure, for the most part, and it's a beautiful town, and we thank everybody for welcoming us and allowing us to film here.
Now you're shooting again with Lee Daniels, who you worked with before. Was that a big draw, one of the reasons you took this opportunity, along with being the lead in the show itself?
Absolutely. I've worked with Lee Daniels before once on The Butler, and that was a while ago. We did a panel not too long ago where Lee spoke about the difference between me as the actor then versus now. But it's, you know, Lee directed The Butler, and he's a little, he's producing this project, so he's not directing. It's not as a hands-on experience, but he was a draw. Karen Gist, the showrunner, was a draw, and of course, there are so many other wonderful actors here. Joe Morton. I've also worked with Debbie Morgan in the past. I played her daughter years ago in All My Children. And so, you know, Morris Chestnut. We have the opportunity to work with so many wonderful actors. And Tasha Smith, who directed the first 2 episodes, was lovely. So it was a real kind of exciting opportunity. And I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of work. The hours are long, but I really feel like we are investing our time, energy, and love into something really great that will only get better with time.
How important is this project at this point in time, celebrating Black culture and success in the time that we've had in this country after the death of George Floyd and the racial divisions that have been in many communities? How important do you think this series is right now?
You know, George Floyd was a symbol because it was such an extreme thing for people to witness his passivity and that atrocity happening to him for those 9 minutes, and it got people's attention. The unfortunate thing is that while we are not experiencing the peaceful protests that we did last year, while it's not on the forefront of everyone's tongues and Instagram feeds, it's still going on daily. There's still an attack, you know, by the prison industrial complex and the police and on these black bodies, men and women. And it's something that on one hand needs to continue to be addressed, but on the other hand also needs to be taken a break from, because it's exhausting and it's tiring and it's hurtful to continue to see your reflection in that way. And so my hope with a show like this is that we are providing everyone with opportunities to share in levity and laughter, to talk about human issues that we can all face, whether it's childhood trauma or relationships between a teenage daughter and a mom, or a father-daughter relationship, all these just real life things, while sprinkling in a dance party and another excuse to dress up, and just lots of laughter and joy and fun, because that is what I want to see more of. And so the more we show examples of that, the more that is reflected in reality.
Now, this is not your first project in Wilmington, though. Didn't you shoot Bolden? You were here for that. Now, that was back in, 2007, 2008, and it just got released in 2019. Had you been here before?
So we did shoot the second iteration of Bolden here. That version of Bolden, and I guess it was 2007 or 8, I was not involved with. But when they decided not to move forward with that version of it and then recast everyone and started again in, I believe, 2014?
Okay.
That's when I got involved. I played Nora Bolden, the wife of the legendary Buddy Bolden, who was credited for basically inventing jazz, and had a really tragic story, going into an insane asylum and all this stuff. So I played his wife. It was a really wonderful experience then. And this time I'm here for longer, and I'm actually able to really get to know the town, whereas before I was just kind of in our Bolden bubble.
Well, we've had some people who have come to work here and then ended up moving here. Linda Lavin was here for many years. We've had others who have come here to work. What have you done? How have you gotten to know Wilmington and southeastern North Carolina?
I have gone out on a boat, and the boat culture here in the middle of the summer is really cool. I can see that it's a vacation spot, I love how everyone waves as we're floating by each other. I've gone out to eat at some of the different restaurants around here. One of my favorite is, I believe it's called Catch, and there's another, I like the Salmon Club with no bacon at Fork and Cork. There's a lot of different places that I've learned, to frequent and seen, okay, this is where I can eat, this is where I can hang out. I don't have a lot of time, honestly, so it's really just if I'm here on a weekend or something. But for the most part, Wilmington has been absolutely lovely, a lovely place to work. I'm not surprised that people have moved here. I wouldn't, honestly, but I get it. I would definitely come back and visit.
How has it been working with COVID? Have you had a lot of issues? I know they set up some parameters for the different shoots. Has it impacted what you all have done with the shoots on this project?
Absolutely. I don't think there's a production in Hollywood or anywhere in the world that has not been affected by it. And so it's really a game of, and I hate to use the word game because it's not, it's very serious, but there's a really delicate balance that has to be found between we are working hard and we're getting this done and we're staying healthy. One thing that isn't talked about enough is strengthening our immune systems in all different kinds of ways. And there are natural ways to do that. And one of the things that our immune systems like best is sleep. Unfortunately, our hours are long on set, and so we're not sleeping enough in general. And so with that, having all of these people working on something together so closely, being under, rested and kind of susceptible to things, it takes a lot of reminders and encouragement, camaraderie, and sisterhood and brotherhood, and realizing, listen, we're in this together. Because if someone comes up with a positive test, we have productions on hold until we do our contact tracing, until we figure out, who needs to quarantine. And it's a big deal, for sure.
Do you have to be tested regularly? Did you all have to be vaccinated before you started on this at all?
Yes, 3 times a week. We're kind of at this in-between stage where not everyone has had to disclose their vaccination status, but for the most part, I think people are, and, either way, we get tested Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it seems like they're really on top of it.
Now, your character, Angela, is the rivalry with Nadine Ellis's character, Leah, going to fuel the series? Is that going to be the underlying current as this series continues? Because from the first episode, you have the secret, you have trying to set up the business, you have the social side. But there seems to me, at least from everything I've read, that the current between those two characters is going to be what kind of drives this. True?
I think that there are multiple currents and that they will transform. So what looks like one issue, you will then discover is actually rooted in something else that might surprise you. And so for me, the fun part is seeing kind of the twists and turns and seeing all these unexpected things. I mean, yeah. Sometimes I get the next script and I'm like, oh, okay.
That came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, it came from somewhere. We just didn't know it yet. So, and it's fun. It's fun to discover these things. And I hope that the audience has the same kind of wow reaction that we do when we read it. Yeah.
You were born and raised in...
I love working with Nadine, by the way. Leah and Angela's rivalry will continue.
Well, that's good, because the tension is really kind of raises the level there. You were born and raised in New York City, went to Brown University and studied international relations and African studies. Had modeling and TV not come into your forefront, what were you going to do for a career?
That's a great question. I began acting when I was about 11 years old. In my junior high school, my acting coach, Angela Vaughn, would send me out on auditions. And so I was, I don't know, it was probably $100 a day or something like that for these educational films that they would show in schools. And the kids would act out skits, and then they would say, what should, so-and-so do, A, B, or C, right? So I did those for a while. And then I was raised by educators. My father was a college professor. My mother was a Montessori school director and teacher. And so education was the most important thing. And it was only when I graduated from Brown that I was able to really sit and say, okay, what do I want to do? And the list was long. I have a lot of different gifts and, interests and curiosities. And so I said, before I go off and, work in Geneva at the UN or do this or that, I want to just give this another shot as an adult and see where it takes me. And it took me, so.
Yeah.
But I was, I always considered myself an actor. It just took me a long time to find the confidence to just say that at the expense of all else, at the expense of my side jobs that were keeping me afloat, be it teaching, be it grant writing, be it modeling, be it, whatever it was, like doing hair in real life. It was not until I quit all those other jobs that I was able to really focus, do my best at my auditions, and really show up and own that, wow, this actually is where I'm supposed to be.
Well, we all know it's where you're supposed to be because you are tremendously talented and great at it. I do want to ask you, I listened to one interview that you did, and from America's Top Model 3, when you were on that, and then started to do ads, and then worked your way into theater and television. I heard you say something that you almost had to overcome the stigma of reality TV and the next top model. Was that difficult? Was that really like a wall you had to climb up and over?
In the beginning, I didn't know that it would be. If I had known, I probably wouldn't have done it. And I was really close to not doing it because the same day they started was the day of my graduation from Brown. And they wanted me to leave early, and I was like, oh, that's okay. Thank you for the invitation, but I actually have to walk across the stage, but thank you. And they were like, okay, fine. And they waited. They held all the other girls hostage and, sent me on a flight from Rhode Island to Manhattan, and I hadn't had an opportunity to change. So I literally walked in with my cap and gown, and I didn't know that that was the beginning of the story that they were writing for my character, because they're writing. It's not real. Reality is written, and that was the beginning of reality TV. And so there was a lot we didn't understand, but that kind of created the story of oh, she thinks she's so smart, and I'm like, sorry for just graduating. They told me to come anyway. I don't know, but I wasn't as invested in it as a lot of people, right? And so when it was over, I felt really, it was a very sensitive time. And I had been hurt, by my experience there. And it took a long time for me to heal on a personal level, and then to be in my, profession and have directors at the wrap parties after the film is filmed come up to me and say, some background artists said that you were on a reality show. Is that true? And I was like, oh yeah, you didn't know? And I was told twice. If we had known, we might not have even auditioned you, much less hired you.
Really?
Absolutely. And this was in 2006, 5, 6.
Wow.
It was a very different time, and it was a lot at that time to be, to feel like I had so much to prove, because if you look a certain way, then they're like, oh, she's a model. And I was like, well, I kind of just wanted to pay off my college loans, and, Kohl's catalog is paying me more than this off-Broadway play, so I'm gonna do that right now. And I stopped after 2007. I didn't do it for very long. But it was something that I had to navigate. And then, over the years, I've just learned to be grateful for the experience now that, I'm an adult. And it's almost as if the whole world had an awakening. And they're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe we thought that was okay. Or I can't believe we watched that and didn't see the issues with it. And even Tyra Banks herself has come out and apologized for certain things. But as an adult, who did my work, who did my healing, and who insisted on being taken seriously in my craft, I just am now at a place of pure gratitude, because people remember me from that show, and they've followed me to Chicago Med and now to Our Kind of People. And that's just really heartwarming and a wonderful blessing.
We're glad that you're shooting Our Kind of People here in Wilmington. Angela is the lead character, Yaya DaCosta. Thank you so much for taking the time today. You have been successful at everything you have done, and we know that Our Kind of People will be a smash hit for Fox.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that blessing. Thank you for having me, and thank you to all of Wilmington for embracing us.
A big thank you to Yaya DaCosta for sparing some of her time and joining us for this week's podcast interview. Keep your eyes open around town. Chances are you'll see the cast and crew of Our Kind of People shooting in the city and maybe even out at the beach. And if you'd like to learn more about Yaya, go to yayadacosta.com. Now, before we go, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please download and subscribe to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast on whatever app you use to listen to your favorite shows. And if you would be so kind, please leave us a rating or a review. I really do want to know what you think of our interviews. And the more feedback we have from folks like you, the higher we'll be listed on the apps and the better chance we'll have of bringing in even more new listeners. I'm John Evans. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of One-on-One.